Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co host Miyosha. And today we're reviewing Love is Blind, the reunion episode.
Mm,
Married at First Sight needs to learn something from these people.
it's
But
embarrassing.
it really is. But anyway, before we get into the review, please make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. Give this video a like and meet us in the comments so that we can hear your thoughts about this episode.
Mhm.
All right. Do you want to go ahead and get into it? At the beginning, they had a very long and drawn out beginning. I thought it was very unnecessary. The
It
Lachey's,
was very cheesy too.
it
I
was
didn't care
very
for the
cheesy.
intro.
Like we
Mm-mm.
don't need the skits. Like get we've heard so much about these people on social media. Get us to the interview, okay? Also, no
Mm.
more EpiPen jokes, please. I think we've heard enough. We
Yeah.
okay. And then the last thing I'll say before we get into the couples was, I honestly could have done without the people from previous seasons. I don't think they were needed.
I was gonna ask you, could you have done without the people from the previous seasons, or would you want to do without the audience altogether?
The audience is fine because they didn't really do much except put up an AD sign. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I if once they've had their season, like let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
They took up time. There were questions that I felt like weren't asked to the cast that we wanted to be asked,
Filler.
and they were filled by questions to the old couples or the old
Mm-hmm.
contestants. And so I just felt like I could have done without that. It wasn't necessary to have them. It's always nice to see Tiffany and Brett. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite couples from this whole franchise. And of course, Lauren and Cameron, who probably too booked and busy to show up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I could have done with
So I'm a person who watched season one and then I skipped to season five and then now we're in six.
it.
And so, as a person who took a break, I wasn't familiar with their story. So, I was just kind of skipping through. If I didn't know the couple, I
Yeah,
skipped.
yeah,
So, I think it was a bit of a waste to me as a
distraction.
person who didn't watch all six seasons. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. So it starts out with Jeremy in the hot seat. And then we find out that he and Sarah Ann, she had her own little intro and they brought her out. Could have done without that too. But they are apparently dating and have been together for the last year. What are your thoughts on this couple?
I think at this point, especially given what Chelsea said, it feels a bit like they're trying to make it work to prove a point because he says something to the effect later, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but
Mm.
you asked, how do I feel about them being together? He said something about how we just wanted to get to a certain point. We just wanted to see each other through this process. Why?
I'm always skeptical of couples who make it to the reunion show, like Josh and Jackie. Oh, you didn't watch that season, but
Mm-mm.
Josh and Jackie from a previous season, they were together at the time of the reunion, and I always felt like, okay, this relationship seems a bit forced, and then they did end up breaking up
Mm.
shortly after, and that's the same way I felt about Sarah Ann and Jeremy. Like they had something to prove, they had to make it to the reunion so people could see, look, we're still together. But I did not appreciate seeing her stand 10 toes down and get into a back and forth over a man who she's broken up with twice in the last almost a year. Like,
And then we see a flashback to, I guess she actually did sit down with Laura
mhm,
and apologize. So we didn't see that when the season aired. And so I was with Laura. I mean, why show up with all this energy
mhm.
and you've already apologized? Just own it. If you're going to sit in it and be in it, own it. You knew this moment was going to come. Because in that sit down, it almost sounds like she was like, oh, can you forgive me? She wanted her approval.
Mhm,
It's like, oh yeah, girl, I took your man, not took literally, but I stepped in the way.
mhm.
But can you forgive me and give me your blessing, please, so I can feel good about
That's
myself
how
and
I
not
felt
be a
to
pick
you.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Sarah and Jeremy deserve each other. Like, I don't have any issues with them being together or apart. They're not my cup of tea. If they're together, great. If they're not, great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I appreciate. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something?
Mm-mm.
Okay. They brought up the ex fiance who's been on
Mm.
TikTok, I guess, talking about how she and Jeremy were still together, and this to me was an opportunity for additional questions that we didn't get.
Which ones?
So, all right. So he talks about how whatever the ex fiance is saying isn't true. He said that they had broken up with each other and then he has sold his house and then he found out about Love is Blind. But I just wanted to know what was the timeline? So, when
Mm.
did you move out? When did you sell your house? When was the last time you had talked to her? Were you guys still talking when the process reached out? And so you decided, okay, this is my chance. And so I'm going to make sure things are cut off with her. Like, tell us the timeline because
Because it
he has
seems
to
as
shed light.
though he mentioned it to
Yes.
CYA.
Mm.
So both of the ladies confirmed, oh yes, he did mention this, but I do think that there is a difference in, oh yeah, I was engaged 6 months ago, it ended versus no, we were living together last month.
Exactly. So, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe I just want to know for being nosy because it doesn't matter. Like, the process ended how the process ended. But I would like to know if you're going to say that something is not true, have some receipts, por favor.
And I think because of his behavior on the show, it shows that he also can lie through omission, even with the whole location thing where he's like, no, but I ran and told you, not anticipating that she would be awake to catch where his location pinged in the middle of the night. So him being like, oh well, I didn't intentionally lie or mean to do it. No, you left out the part of going to a completely different location in the story. And
And
she was right. Had she not seen it in that moment, he wouldn't have said it.
he's so sketchy. And then this is when of all the
Oh,
times, this is when
she
Sarah
gonna fight for her man.
decides to step in. Girl, if I'm sorry, if a man and I, no matter how much I love him, if I decide to stay with him after we've broken up 2 times, would I tell you I would be mute? I wouldn't even sit next to him on the couch. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have shown up to the reunion,
Mm-mm.
to be very honest, because it's embarrassing already that people know we've broken up a couple of times. Like,
Also, let me take a step back.
mhm,
Their body language too, because he seemed to be like, "Well, I'm here. It is what it is." But
that's
she
him.
was right. He's always been pretty chill. She's leaning into him, hands on him. You could tell, in my opinion, from the body language that she's really into this, and he's just like, "Well, I'm here."
I don't know. I This whole conversation. So at this point, Jessica starts to talk back, which Jessica seems like a lovely girl. I don't understand why she was on the couch the entire time. I
I
could have done
we
with
know why.
I think from what I've heard, I haven't really been on social media recently, but from what I've heard, maybe social media enjoys her. She has like a really nice platform. So that's good for her. But as someone who just watches the show, I did not understand her placement here. And we'll talk about her later on, but I just felt like she was being forced on us a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this situation really had nothing to do with her. Um,
But
but
she
yeah,
chimed
Sarah,
in.
yeah, she chimes in and says, "No, you're a pick me. You said you wanted your moment and you did," which is true.
We're all thinking that, child. I mean, if you're gonna show up on a show where you weren't coupled up, I mean, I'm glad you stay in the facts, Jessica. But yeah, this whole thing about pick me girl, who cares? Both of them exhibited that type of behavior. Jessica at the table or at the bar with Laura, and then
Mm,
Sarah Ann just followed through with hers. So they're different levels of
yeah.
pick me girl. Who cares? I
I
don't.
was here for Laura calling her a clown because it is a bit clownish behavior. This and he's just sitting there once again, just saying nothing.
It's
He's just there.
that bothers me. Okay, but I I will say Laura irked me a little bit, and it could be just some residual stuff from the season. I never really
Mhm.
saw it for her. I do think she has a mean streak.
Oh,
That
yeah. She was calling people names all throughout.
yeah, and so I don't necessarily like her personality that has
Mhm.
been shown on the show because I don't know her personally. But her saying she was so surprised by how Jeremy acted because they were checking in and he had spent the day with her family with her trash talking him the entire time, and then they would constantly do the check-ins that they were moving toward marriage. So I can see how that would be surprising, but also from my perspective, Laura didn't care for him either. So
She didn't like him like that.
her
This is
acting,
all
yeah, her
an
acting
act. So
wounded is just a bit like, okay, girl, we have eyes. We could see that you did not like this man, and you were not super bummed out. Like he was, he handled it in a very trash way. So yeah, your reactions are warranted, but
mm, I think she was shocked at his audacity that he would be so blatant about it. I don't think she was into him, but I also think she was following through with the process. He
Mhm.
had met her parents. She was slated to meet his mom that day. So I could see, even if I was on the fence about it and I'm in the relationship, but we're doing all the formalities of meeting family, which now you're getting other people involved. I could see her being shocked by that. I'm supposed to meet your mom at 10 a.m. We're dealing with this at 9 a.m.
That is so
Even if I
awkward.
didn't like you like that, I
Yeah,
wouldn't think you would do that the morning I'm supposed to meet your mom.
insane. Very
Mm-mm.
disrespectful behavior. Okay, so then Jeremy finally does speak up and he says, so Chelsea said, every time I see him, they're broken up. And he's like, you saw me one time. She's like, I saw you twice. That interaction was funny. No, I saw you two times and y'all are broken up both. And he's like, okay, well, either way, we have gone through real life relationship stuff. And I don't know how you feel about this, but to break up even once, but definitely twice within the span of a year, to me is a sign that maybe this relationship is not the right thing for either of us at this time. I would
That
not
and
do that.
because of their unique start,
Hmm.
y'all started from a shaky place and then to follow it up with being broken up twice at least that they were willing to admit to on camera.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it were more.
They weren't even
Um,
willing to admit to that. Yeah. It's just that,
yeah.
yeah.
Now they live together. It just seems as though they're trying to save face and prove a point,
Hmm.
and maybe he didn't want to leave her hanging out to dry. I'm not convinced that he's all that into her.
I would agree with that. Ups and downs, and
Mm.
do not get me wrong. I do think in relationships there are ups and downs. I know that for a fact. I just think within the first year to have ups and downs when it's still honeymoon phase type stuff, and then I don't know, breakups.
And, and
It's
these
just,
people aren't 20 and 21 years old.
yeah. How old are they?
Where
13 something.
I don't know. I think in your late 20s, early 30s, I would expect that when you break up, you break up. I see this
About
as more of, oh, maybe we're in college or newly out of college. We're still gaining our footing, learning how to maneuver relationships. Maybe when you're young, you don't want to believe that it's actually over.
yeah.
But as you inch closer to 30, you know when it's over or when it needs to be over. And if you're in that loop of going back, come on.
I
Mm-mm.
knew somebody who was 40 and in the loop of going back, but her thing was like, oh, he ain't got nobody else to go to. He gonna be back with me. And it's like, yeah, but that's not a good, so it's almost like, oh, I can always rely on him coming back to be with me because he doesn't have anybody. Not because he wants to make this work and treat me right, but
Mm.
because who else is gonna want
Yeah,
him?
who else?
All right, girl, and
Wow.
you telling me in my 20s, I that day I decided I could not be this woman. I gotta make different choices in life. Okay. But I also don't feel sorry for Laura. So she was talking about how her grandma booked a flight. You know, her grandma can use that flight another time. She said, he held my dog. Your dog is an
But
animal.
you were also not the nicest to this guy either. I
Oh,
think it was very comfortable for
yeah.
her to show up at the reunion and be in this space of I don't wanna say she was playing the victim, but it was just a very comfortable space for her to be in because she knew most of the heat would be at them, to the point where she had to be the one to bring up the whole bean dip thing,
Oh,
so
sorry. She was talking about how, they didn't reach out to her in the last year, and
and say
like,
what?
why? Right. Why would they reach out to you, girl? You had the lake apology. You don't really need an apology from Jeremy. Like, just that's not necessary. But like you said, she was playing into the victim. But yeah, so she brings up bean dip, which it doesn't seem like it was going to be brought up otherwise. Not only
Mm-mm.
that, but another comment that was made about AD's body was not brought up either. So it seems like they were just
Mhm.
going to avoid talking about those things that were major moments, in my opinion, during this season. So she
Yeah.
brings up Bean Dip and, you know, talks about how it was done in poor taste. She's apologized to AD. She's apologized, to several people, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah,
Uh,
AD seems to have moved past it,
yeah.
so whatever.
She like it, I love it. All right. So the next person, because he's not in a couple, that I have to talk
Oh,
about.
did you wanna talk about, them calling out Sarah Ann for her comments, about it just being entertainment, or you wanna wait?
No, we could talk about that. I don't know. I
Okay.
think Sarah Ann's just trying to like deal with this attention that is coming her
The
way.
heat.
And I don't
Yeah.
know that she knows the proper way of doing it. So maybe she's leaning into the villain, and just being like, it
Mm.
is what it is. So I don't even know if that's really her. I think she is probably a little bit hurt. I,
Found herself there.
I
Hmm.
think she probably has cried, did cry after the reunion. Like, I just think it was her trying to make the best out of a situation and come out on top, not a brokenhearted girl.
That and trying to take the heat off of herself to portray it as though this was more entertainment than what y'all may think it is. And I could appreciate Vanessa being like, no, but you need to state clearly,
Hmm.
don't put this on us in the production as though
Yeah.
we may have told you to do XYZ or that you're acting.
Hmm.
I could appreciate them holding her to that in that
Yeah.
moment.
I will
So
say the Lachey's, or at least Vanessa, did better this episode, this reunion. Even though
mm.
there were some things that I felt like were pivotal moments that were missed, I think it was an improvement from previous seasons where she doesn't ask the right questions.
And I would say, I don't know if they wrote it in for these people to have to show up to the reunion, but
Hmm.
the way that Uche didn't show up last year, I could appreciate that Sarah Ann was there. We could have did without Jessica. Trevor showed up. I think more people than not showed up
Hmm.
versus what happened last year.
So speaking of Trevor, if it's okay to
And
move.
his mullet.
So the mullet is back. Also, he was dressed more casually than everybody else. I don't know. I feel like Trevor's still acting. I do because I think he realized that he would become a meme or a GIF,
Mm,
because the whole pause thing. I think he's
mhm,
seen the Miss Jackson, the family court one,
mhm.
where she's like, I think he's seen that and was trying to replicate it.
I mean, he said, "Oh, I had something planned to say." What else you been planning?
He's acting. That's not him for real. It's just not. Now I don't know why he would, like, out of all the things he could act like, I don't know why that would be the thing that he would act out, probably to
Mhm.
gain some type of sympathy. Because if he had come out all rah rah or in any other way, people still would have eaten him up, and they still
Well, yeah.
are. But just they're eating him up in a different way than, like, he's maybe changed it around from what it would have been. But
Mm.
so he comes out and I said, not them tag teaming reading the text messages. Like, Nick was reading his, and then Vanessa was reading hers. What did you
Talk
think
about
about this,
being in
Sophie?
the hot seat.
Girl, caught in 4K. What did you think about this and his excuses.
Okay, I'm gonna start off on a high note. At least he showed up.
Okay, I'm like, what's the high note? I was looking for it. Is the
That's
high
the
note
highest
in the
as
room with
is
us
it's gonna
today?
get. That's the highest as it's gonna get. He did
Okay,
show up,
fair.
willing to be in the hot seat. I'll give him that. But he basically says, oh, I just don't know. I don't know. Says that the woman wasn't his girlfriend,
Mm.
but was who he would typically go for in real life, and
Hmm.
that she knew he was going on this experiment to find something else. Now, what did you think about that?
I thought it was absolutely bizarre. You don't talk to someone who you're considering dating. So I don't know if they maybe had a history and had broken up. I would have been more receptive to that. Oh, we have a history, we broke up, we're on a break, and I decided to go on this show. But then even the text messages of, I love you, I can't wait to get out of this and marry you, I'm gonna propose to you. What?
So to me, based off the text messages, she knew he was going on this show.
Absolutely.
Um, Now, why she would still want to be involved with him, I wish she had shown text messages or something to give us context around exactly what he told her as to why he was there. Because, and I'm not trying to take up for him, I'm just thinking if he was honest with you about going, what did he tell you to make you be okay with that?
That he was doing this to beef up his platform, probably. And that's why he can't show text messages, because he can't say, oh, I just came on here
Mhm.
to get a following. Which, I mean, let's be real, in 2024 and in season 6 of Love is Blind, we know
Mm.
that nobody on here is just doing it for the love. Like, they're coming on because they want to be on TV. Even the first season, they're okay with being on TV, and the love part would be a plus. Like, they're interested in finding love, they're interested in dating, but they want the publicity.
Mhm.
And so I
And
think
then
that's what he told her.
And then he says, "Oh, she knew about it, and I was trying to find what I usually wouldn't go for."
Mhm.
It sounds like a lie.
You know,
Sounds bizarre. Both of them sound crazy if you ask me, because even if she knew and that was the reason he gave you, the optics of it, why would you want to be with someone who's going on a show like Love is Blind? Like, it's
because
not
of the
adding up for.
money, because they expected that he would become an influencer or something like that, and that she would benefit from it. Girl, this is how people are. This is how a lot of people think.
Since Lauren and Cameron, the
No, but I don't
people
even
believe this?
even though people aren't really, they're still getting a bump in the following. Jessica has done Perfect Match. I've heard Trevor also did Perfect Match. So now he's been on Love is Blind and Perfect Match, which is coming out soon. AD,
Mm,
I think AD is probably going to have a lot of success from this. Like, she
mhm,
already is doing like a Tresemme ad I saw on her Instagram earlier. So I think, yeah, it's possible, maybe not to blow up in the way that Lauren and Cameron did, but definitely to gain a following. And if you have gone in here with a plan, maybe you could walk
mm.
out gaining an extra few, dollars, and really setting yourself up for a decent influencer career. So I think
I
that's
don't
what.
know. From what I saw of Trevor, even though everyone was, we were like, "Oh, protect Trevor" and all that.
Who was
I
like
don't
that? Who said that?
stop. People on the internet were like, "Oh, we love
Um,
Trevor." Let's not forget, for the first few episodes, a lot of people were Team Trevor, and so I don't know. It's bizarre. It's crazy. It sounds like BS.
so sorry. You know what else sounds like BS?
Mm,
Chelsea saying, "Yeah, it was just my intuition that told me not to
girl.
pick him. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what. And now I see, girl, girl. Okay,
The
how
last
about
thing I
you?"
was gonna say was that the final thing he said was, they asked him, "Did you come here just to be on TV?" He
Mm.
says, "I came here for good and bad reasons." You and whoever this girl is, We don't want to hear about y'all no more. I'm done.
Okay. And they bet not bring him back next reunion for season 7 to have him sitting on the couch. No, absolutely not. Cut it out.
Mm.
Okay. So
Mm.
then we moved on to AD and Clay, which AD looks beautiful, by the way. I will say
Mhm.
I loved the dress. I love the brown, all of that stuff. I thought it was funny when Vanessa said, "Oh, you're not painting your nails red anymore." That made me
Mhm.
chuckle a little bit. Okay. So Vanessa says, we're going to go to the couple that everybody has been rooting for. And again, I was confused. I was like, who was rooting for them?
Well, I think because they were the only other wedding. I think that was it, what I assumed.
Vanessa, you need to have your ears to the streets because I don't think anybody was rooting for Clay and AD. We were rooting for AD. And I don't dislike Clay. Like, I mean, I'll share my
Mhm.
opinions about him shortly, but yeah, I don't think anybody was rooting for them as a couple.
Mm.
Just me. Yeah, let us know in the comments if you were rooting for Clay and AD as a couple. Probably nobody will say that, but
Mm.
yeah. So there was a lot of speculation going into the
Mhm.
reunion because a video dropped, and I try not to talk about spoilers on these.
Mhm.
That's why we haven't talked about it before. But apparently, she was with him and his family for Thanksgiving, and so people are like, "Oh, they're together, they're together, they're together." But apparently, they are not, and they have not been. Were you surprised?
Did they ever say they hadn't been together or that they weren't together?
So yes, because she said you had your chance and that was it. She did mention that later. Also, she's done an interview with, I think his name is Nick Vile, but he does these interviews with Love is Blind people and probably other people. The only time I listen to it is with Love is Blind. But she was on his episode that dropped this morning and I listened to it. And she did confirm
That they weren't together right now or that they hadn't tried again?
they hadn't tried again and they're not
Mm.
together right now.
Okay,
She
so I was
described them as like she was like, "Oh, we're flirty friends. When I see him, we like laugh and we're talking and yada yada yada." And they're like, "Oh, you're reminding him of what he lost." And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely. Every chance I get, I remind him of what he lost." So it doesn't seem from what she has said that that was something they.
well, they asked her, they said, "Would you date him again?" And she said, "Next question."
Yeah, a lot of people were thinking that that meant, oh, they have been dating. But then
I
right
didn't take that
after
as they have been dating. I took that as
she would date him.
she would date him. Again, she didn't say no. She didn't say,
Yeah.
yeah, she did follow it up with, "Oh, you played in my face," and all that. But she was just like, "Next question."
Hmm.
And then he said 1,000%. So with that, I said, "Oh, anything's possible."
So I will say that from the interview that I listened to this morning with her on that podcast, she was saying that his goal has been to get her back. That's something that he's been actively trying to do or that he's mentioned that he's wanting
Mhm.
so but it's not something that she's open to because and I said this in the interview in the review that we did after the wedding, but
Mhm.
once you've gone in and you've given your all and oh, it's not me, like I wasn't the reason why that happened, it just gives you a sense of okay, I can pack my bags and leave because I really gave 110%. I have
Mhm.
nothing to do with this failing. Maybe not looking, not seeing the red flags, but that's
Mhm.
another thing. Yeah. So
So something that she said, going back to you saying that she gave her all, and I think a lot of people were shocked that she said yes and he said no, and we're like, "Oh, he had all these red flags." But something that she said that confirmed what I was feeling was there was such a big lead up for
mhm,
such a huge letdown.
mhm.
And I was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think she acknowledged the red flags, was
Yes.
okay with the red flags. They were on the same page about the red flags. And for her, she was not blindsided by his potential behavior, but the fact of him saying no when it was all of these, "I love you and I'm willing to put the
Yeah.
work in and you're willing to accept me at my 60%." So that confirmed for me what I was feeling last week
Mhm.
was, yeah, she knew all of that. Like a lot of women know oh, a man tells you, oh, I'm not where I need to be financially. Many women are willing to take that risk and go along the ride and hope that it works out.
Mhm.
Just like her, she's hearing these things and is like, oh, I'm willing to meet you where you're at. And I'm hoping it'll work out. And he was giving red flags, but also saying a lot of the right things.
That's what she said. So on this podcast interview, she was saying like they had so many conversations about this. And she said, I'm okay if it's a no. I'm okay with that. But, you would just need to let
Mm,
me know, like, let's get on the same page about it. And he would say stuff like, no, AD, I got you. Like, I'm not gonna embarrass you. I'm not gonna make you look bad, whatever. So I think her saying you played in my face was, directly connected to what you're saying.
Even even last week you said something about at the beginning of their wedding day, you even said like, oh, he was saying all the things leading up as though he was a yes, even though we felt like, oh, well, you should say no. The
Yeah,
things he was saying didn't
it's
sound
game
like a
time and I'm ready. Like,
yeah, it didn't sound like a, "Oh, I'm on the fence. Oh, I'm unsure." So, I think she would have been fine with his decision either way, but it felt misleading.
for sure. He's
And it stings more knowing that she was willing to accept him where he was so low, and it still wasn't enough. So,
on the podcast, she said that he genuinely believed, and we've mentioned this too, that she would date him afterwards. And so she was saying that's why I had to stand on what I said. So I had to stand on business
mhm,
because he really expected, okay, yeah, I know you said you won't date me, but you still probably will. And she's like, no, I said it and I meant it.
mhm.
Um, how did you feel about Clay on this reunion?
I don't know, he said a lot of the right things. He said looking back, he wish he would have made a different decision.
I
AD
don't.
was the best woman for him.
True.
We're
I I don't think he should have made a different decision, but I do think she was a great woman for him. He wasn't a great man for her. That was the issue. But go ahead.
yeah, he apologized for wasting her family's time. He said he made a mistake. He says that he's in therapy, knows he needs to do the work. So I think he was saying all the right things, but I think for AD, it's a double-edged sword in knowing that once again, she was kind of used a bit to
Mhm.
help you have all of this self-discovery. So I think he was saying the right things, but I don't feel any different because I would have wanted you to come to this self-awareness about yourself without her having to go through the heartbreak and all
Yeah.
of this. So, uh,
You know what
okay, okay. It's like, what do you want me to do with this information now?
well, that's the thing. I feel like I enjoyed watching them because this is a very good example of I can accept your apology and I can see that you have grown. But I have to decide if I want to put myself in that situation. And honestly, no, I don't. And so I appreciate that AD's not here like trashing Clay, although she could.
Yeah.
She's not out here trashing him because at the end of the day, this is a human being whose journey is just different. Like they have to learn from their mistakes and improve their behaviors. And I'm hopeful that he will do that. But I still don't think AD needs to throw herself into the mix. She can
And
probably move on without that.
I do believe him when he said that, I should have put in the work before coming on camera. I believe going into this process, he had maybe a certain view of himself. And
Yes.
I truly believe in him watching him back and him seeing what we saw. I
Mhm.
do think that there is more self-awareness there in growth.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I could believe that. Even in his energy and demeanor, I'm like, yeah, I think there's a bit of humbleness that I see in his energy, at least on the stage.
No, not on Instagram because I thought it was just a joke. I took it for what it was. But also, so I don't know if you've heard this Michael Jackson interview that he
Oh,
no, it's not true. Oh my God.
oh,
No, it's all lies.
no,
So
it's a
he did,
lie. It's a lie.
yeah, it's a lie.
It's a
He
lie,
did,
baby.
he did a thing with that voiceover. So maybe
Mhm.
I don't see a humility in that, but I just thought it was a
So,
joke and it made me
yeah.
laugh. So, but I'm rooting for Clay. I think this is just from what I've seen online. I think Clay reminds a lot of women of not great men that they've had in their past. And so
Mm,
even if he completely rehabilitates his image or tries to, and even if he's in the therapy and doing all the things he needs to do, I think a large portion of the internet probably won't want to see his growth or won't accept that he's actually growing because
mm,
he's on screen and reminding people of men that they've dealt with in the past who maybe have said they're improving but haven't. And so I think it's going to be hard for him on the internet. I don't know that he's ever going to be anybody's favorite, but as a young man, who seems to be trying to really move past the demons that, he's encountered and grow. I'm rooting for him. Just stay away from my good sis AD.
yeah, and even when AD brought up, um, watching the scene as far as his parents, what
Mhm.
that told me and even him saying that, we're still dealing with the healing and growth that needs to
Yes,
come with
yes,
that, and him acknowledging like, my dad didn't outright apologize, but he
yes.
gave he thought was his version of an
Mhm.
apology, which I think if we all have boomer parents,
We know. If
we
you
know
know,
what
you
those
know.
apologies be hitting on.
Is the apology in the room with us today? It's not here.
Absent. But,
Okay.
they may find their own way of apologizing, and it's up to you to know your parent and kinda figure out where they
Mhm.
stand with that. But with that said to me is that, even him maybe not realizing
Yeah.
like, there's a bit of genuineness about him, I think, and even in how he just aired out his whole family business
I
that made me think, yeah, there was some lack of awareness there.
know.
And
Mhm.
maybe even with his own family, his own mother,
Yes. Yes.
and not even connecting the dots on like, oh,
This is
maybe
harmful.
this is not something I should be airing out. So I did empathize with him with that, where it felt genuine and that maybe even he didn't realize all of what was going to come out of this. And
Mhm.
him and his family are still dealing with that. And
Remnant.
so that did make me feel a bit of empathy for him, and that it, with all the things that he was doing and saying that I didn't agree with, I did feel for him with that. And there has to have been some growth
Yeah.
there, I'd hope, from realizing the consequences of some of the things that you're doing and saying. That made me feel like he was genuine. Not
Mm,
that I would have wanted him to air out his parents' business,
girl.
but to tell your mom while filming
Mhm.
what you aired out that you've gone 30 years or 20 years without saying.
Mhm. That's a lot. AD said on that interview. I know I keep talking about AD said on that interview.
Mhm,
AD said on the interview. But she said she thought everybody knew. Like, so when it hit her that, oh no, this is stuff that he's saying for the first time. I was like, whoa, this is
mhm,
intense. So yeah, I think this process has required him to grow up. And I will say this: the internet is a very unforgiving place, and you know,
mhm,
with good reason in a lot of cases. But I think those of us in our like late 20s and early 30s, we're going to make mistakes. And you really need the people around you to be able to look at you and say, okay, you made this mistake, but that doesn't define you forever. Because on the internet,
mhm.
Clay is always going to be this. He just is, at least for
Yeah,
the next 10 years. But hopefully, and it seems like he has a good enough community around him to keep him grounded and to help him through the growth. So I felt like his answers were a little rehearsed, but I didn't mind that because I think he's had to like sit and think about this is what I portrayed myself as before, and I need to be working on like rehabilitating that image. And so I didn't mind it, but also you have to come and be prepared to be in the hot seat if you're a Clay or even a Jimmy who didn't end up being in the hot seat. But
Mm.
I think if you're one of those characters, you have to come knowing that people are going to ask those questions and they'll be right. Like it'll be warranted.
What did you think about AD saying she didn't wanna be his mom in the long run?
Somebody said she could have just said she didn't want to deal with that. She didn't have to bring his mom into it. But I don't think she meant it in a negative way towards the mom. I I think she was just talking about how profound that moment was for her and how she
Mhm.
could have seen herself. Like if he would have said yes, considering he hadn't done the work, he would have put her through a similar cycle. So I agreed with her and I'm glad that she got the closure that she needed. What did
Mm.
you think? So I'm glad that he's in therapy, and he mentioned something that's very important. He said, you know, I've tried multiple therapists too, because
Mhm.
I think people who haven't had therapy sometimes they start and it's not a good fit with their therapist, and
Mhm.
then they decide, okay, well, therapy isn't for me. So I think it is a great sign that he is doing that, and you know, kudos to him.
Yeah.
Before we move off of them, oh, sorry. Another thing he said was, you know, my dad's a good father because I know, like in the comments, people are like, his dad's not a good father, and then you
Yeah.
know, and trust me, I understand because it's hard to reconcile a good father doing what you know Clay's dad did. But again, you know, if he's willing to accept his dad's imperfections, and if he and his siblings are the only ones who know what kind of father he has, we know what they showed us on this TV show. We don't know what the parenting looked like outside of that. And so maybe he's like, yeah, 10% of it was terrible. 90%, I'm about to say 80. My math ain't that bad. It's bad, but it's not like that. But no, 90% of it was good. And so, you know, that's still an A. But
Yeah,
go
and I
ahead.
think I saw someone in the comments was saying that we didn't call out Clay's dad enough. I just wanna say you'll never catch me on the internet going hard on anyone's parent. Um, yeah, I felt as though it was a delicate situation that was playing out for all of them at the first for the first time. And I also think that, that it's his dad and that's his mom's
Mhm.
ex-husband. And I could respect him in wanting to separate the relationship a bit and whether
Yes.
he was gonna call his dad out on it or not, like I don't know. It's not for me to say how Clay should embrace or not embrace his dad based off of whatever behaviors. Like this is his real life,
Yeah.
and if he chooses to embrace his dad in a certain way based off of everything that he knows,
Yeah.
I can respect that. So,
And even AD's mom, like there were some things that I've seen people going in on her about
oh
on the
yeah.
internet, but it's like what we don't know. It's a hard situation to be in.
And these are third party people who are getting involved in reality TV based off of
Mhm.
what their kids signed up for. So these people are just showing up to be supportive,
Of their
not really to
yes.
air out all of their business.
The
So
the fact that because
what do
my
y'all want us to
parents,
say?
I don't know that my parents would show up for a show like Love
Absolutely not.
Child.
They
You
wouldn't.
know they
You signed up for what? Oh, you're gonna have to run this through yourself.
my Africa girl, oh my God. Anyway,
Hmm.
um,
And that's another thing, like, y'all, let's not act like our parents are perfect. We just don't have a camera following us.
if I oh my Lord. Amen to that.
Mm.
Okay. So there was something else. All right. The moment between Clay and Brett, I'm not gonna lie, I teared up a little bit because
Oh.
having watched this show, Brett really set the bar high. Like
Mm.
one of my favorite guys on this show. And I hate to put him on a pedestal because I'm sure he has his imperfections and
Mhm.
so I hate to do that, but seriously, he came in, he was about his business, a man who, was serious about his career, was so loving and so gentle towards Tiffany, was about her from day one, never wavered, And so I can understand somebody like Clay.
Mhm.
Uh,
Being like, "Whoa, I am not that."
yeah, because Brett was on it from day one.
And and this is where I think some people don't appreciate his openness and harshness, him
Mhm.
acknowledging that, "Hey, not only did I not have a good example, but specifically being this track star,
Yes,
ladies man, you get all the women, anyone you want, you can have," to transitioning into, okay, now you're a working person, you're going to meet your wife, settle down, have kids, and
yes,
not having someone to guide you on what that transition is. I have seen other young men
struggle.
in my life have to navigate being a star in your own right
Mm,
to living this regular life and being with one person. I think a lot of people don't want to hear it,
mhm.
but it's the truth.
I loved something that Clay said. He said, I've heard it before, so it's not like groundbreaking,
Hmm.
but he said, when you ask older men for advice, they're always saying, like, oh, happy wife, happy life. Like, nobody shows you how to be a husband, get your needs met,
Be
uh,
present. Hmm.
articulate your needs, and also meet theirs and listen to what like there's a whole lot of because women we form community, and I love being
Hmm.
a woman. Like I'll be a woman time and time again, but we form these communities where it's transparency about this is what it is to be a wife, and you might come across this situation, and this might be how you want to handle it. I would recommend
Mhm.
handling it this way. We have those very vulnerable moments, and I sometimes feel bad for men for like
Yeah.
1.5 seconds, not to
They're
like
on islands a lot.
yes, like it's just them, and then if they find like a good woman to love them, it's them and that woman. But
Mhm.
you seldom see, even if they have a group of guys around them, you seldom see the vulnerability.
Yeah, the more intimate details
Yeah,
and insight into the inner workings of
yeah,
making a marriage work. Yeah. I appreciated that moment.
I did too. And then yeah, so he gave Brett the flowers, and Brett is one thing about Brett. He always gonna make sure he shouts out Tiffany and what she means to him,
Mhm.
and I just love that for them. I love that for Tiffany because you wouldn't have seen this season, but when she came to the pods, I think she might have been 37, and so feel like I've
Mm.
spent most of my time doing my whole career thing.
Mhm.
Has my time passed? I don't know if I'm gonna find somebody, but I'm here and willing to be open to it.
Mhm.
And she found Brett who
Wow.
was ready to love somebody,
Mm.
on this show, on this hot mess of a show. She found Brett. So,
Yeah, and at least Clay can acknowledge, "Hey, I'm not that, and it was my bad for coming on here
mhm.
and not even knowing or realizing." Yeah, he gonna be preparing for this for a while.
But
Mm.
I really wish him the best. Even AD was like, "You are a good guy, Clay." Like I really hope therapy works out for him, and in a few years, we'll see him out here with somebody settling down and
Doing right.
doing right by that person
Mhm.
and by himself.
And don't have nobody until you can do right.
Yeah,
I stand
especially
by
now that
that.
you are on like, you're under a microscope right now. At least until season 7 drops, you're under a microscope.
I wanna say some tea came out about him and his exes.
That he preferred people of a lighter hue?
No, not that. It was,
Oh, no. That's
that he was a cheater, serial cheater.
oh,
Well, yeah.
I mean, he done
Yeah, I
told
wanna
us.
say I think one of the women that they found that was an ex was AD's complexion and all that.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know what the whole
I didn't know
history looked like, but it was more so they were like, "Run,
that.
he's a
Mhm.
cheater. This guy, don't take him seriously." But yeah.
I would say I do think he liked AD. So this is just me, and maybe I'm naive. You guys can let me know in the comments.
Mhm.
People disagree with us all the time. We don't mind. But I do think he liked and admired AD. So
I think he liked her.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
Mm.
right, Amy and Johnny. I was a little bit. I thought I had seen somewhere that Johnny was dating another contestant who was also on the stage, or they were.
You said something about the airport they were seen together, but maybe they were flying somewhere to shoot the reunion.
I don't know, but why wouldn't Amy have been there? So the rumor was that Johnny and
Um,
Jessica are together or something like that.
well, clearly they not because they showed up hand in hand. They look cute.
They
I
did. The
mean,
Paris pictures were beautiful. They
I
did that. I don't really have
know.
much else on them. They discovered condoms.
Well, they said it was always an option, which I assumed, and he confirmed what I said. He didn't know. And I'm not making excuses for him, but like many men,
They
they
are
leave the responsibility of birth control to women to figure out. Yeah, I'm glad they both realized like, yeah, procreating or preventing is everybody's responsibility. So,
great.
yeah.
Okay. Can we talk about Jimmy? Because I feel like there were so many more questions that could have been sent in this direction and Chelsea's that just weren't. So they did ask about the friends, like, what did your friend think about the
Mhm.
secret being put on blast? And he had an answer for that. I decided to sign up for this, not them. So I deserve that type of energy, but I wanted to protect them from that.
And then she jumps in and is like, "Oh, well, you know, just making
No,
excuses,
don't do
just
that to Chelsea. She jumps in, it's like, oh well, why you gotta do all that?
because that's how I saw it." I'm so over it. Just own it. And nobody else wanted to hold her accountable either.
This has been the most, oh, almost the most unhinged person on Love Is Blind, and she got no questions. They didn't ask her, hey, why did you call out AD? We didn't even talk about that scene at
And
all.
I was waiting for AD to say something more than what she said, other than, oh, it was wild to watch her on this emotional roller coaster because that's not the Chelsea that we know.
AD.
None. So all of a sudden now all of y'all would be okay if you had someone close to you come on a show and their business was aired out. Okay.
Somebody said, I don't like how Nick Lachey asks questions because he's just like, does anybody have any thoughts about that? And then everybody's looking like, you did pick somebody, such and such. How do you feel about this? But yeah, so all they did was ask Jimmy about the friends thing, nothing else. They didn't ask him why he made the comment about AD and if in hindsight maybe he understands why that wasn't an appropriate thing to say to his wife, or maybe he hadn't realized that she was as insecure. No questions about that. He kind of mentioned that he and Chelsea, had conversations after not going through with the wedding. What did that look like? Did y'all get together for a short period of time? Can we get more information on that? Are we not gonna, like there I wanted to know more about Jimmy and I wanted him in the hot seat a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I dislike him, even though at the beginning of the season I was not here for him, but just
Mm-hmm.
because there were so many interesting things that happened with them.
Yeah, and I think even for Chelsea, I think the only acknowledgement of her insecurity was when AD, I think, responded was like, "Oh, it was hard to watch her go through that." But there were so many times where I think her insecurity shined through that I wanted her to say more about why.
Even so, they brought up the Megan Fox thing. I felt like there was more questioning that needed to take place around that. When you said this to Jimmy, did you feel like it would give you an edge over the competition? Because that's what it seemed like. What effect did you anticipate it would have on him? And do you think maybe he picked you because you said you look like freaking Megan Fox? And why were you trying to act like you didn't know Megan Fox's name? Talking about, is it MGK? Is it his wife or his girlfriend? You know that woman's name.
She acknowledged it, but she still didn't want to acknowledge that it was manipulation. On
They didn't ask about it. I don't think that's her fault. If I'm her, I'm only answering what they ask me.
I could see that. And even then, she was like, "Well, I just want to commend myself for how I've been handling the heat on the internet."
Anyway, so this was the most disappointing thing to me,
Mhm.
the line of questioning with Chelsea and Jimmy. And I felt like it took so much time out of the reunion to have Jessica addressing Jimmy a year
It
later.
felt like there was more of Jessica addressing Jimmy than Chelsea and Jimmy talking. Even for him to answer, why did you wait until the day of your date to do it? Why not? Yeah.
I wanted to know if Jessica's going to be there, ask her, do you think in retrospect that it was right for you to not talk about Autumn up front? Ask her those questions if she's going to take up space on the couch the entire reunion. Let
Mm-mm.
those be the types of things that we ask. But yeah, and also I don't think her feelings are valid. That's how she felt. But how can you be mad at him saying that he felt hammered by you? If that's how he felt, that's how he felt. So your intention wasn't to pressure him. Your intention wasn't to hammer him, but he is clearly used to a different type of woman who doesn't speak like you. And so he felt intimidated by that. And he
And
admitted,
this wasn't his first time saying that. I remember early on, he
yeah,
said, yeah, the way that that conversation went and ended let me know the decision that I needed to make. So I didn't really understand all the back and forth
a lot of smoke.
because I thought we always knew that y'all got to a certain point. He didn't like the way the conversation went. He
Mhm.
said that while in the pods, I think in the guys' lounge, he was talking about how the conversation went with Jessica. And then he went and made his decision.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, that felt pointless. And I wanted Chelsea to be in the hot seat a bit more, even as far as her in this like friend that she claims not to be friends with.
Because she said it again. He's not my best friend, but you had said so. Why did you say that? Because we heard you.
Even you saying, I don't want to be with someone who goes out. Why?
There
So
were just
many
so many
questions.
missed opportunities there. Like, so I will say they improved from last season, but next season, make sure y'all get rid of the other couples from previous seasons, and ask better questions to everybody, not just
Yeah.
Jeremy and Sarah Ann. Uh, Brittany and Kenneth,
Another disappointing segment.
yeah, because I do think we could have said a whole lot more about how that breakup happened. I guess because
Yeah,
they're
from the behavior on the honeymoon. Just I'm sorry, Brittany, how did you feel about AD bringing up the whole interracial thing?
hmm?
We want to hear more. You had a lot of energy there with Kenneth. What does that mean for you and AD? Like, are y'all cool?
Kenneth, what is your interpretation? Now looking back, what is your interpretation of what she was saying that day? Do you still feel like she was saying she wasn't attracted to you? Or do you now understand that she was saying she doesn't think you're attracted to her? Like, just
And
because y'all friends, that doesn't mean
all this, oh, I was reconnecting with my school. Okay, you didn't even move in. And then, oh, something you said that I thought of while watching this reunion was how Kenneth is very obsessed with setting the record straight. And so a few times he was like, well, yeah, if that's your perception. He's like, not everyone's emotional, but that's your perception.
and that's the thing. You don't have to be emotional, but you don't have to be devoid of emotion completely. And he talked about, I called Clay in shambles. This
Clay sitting there like,
Clay, like, I don't want no smoke from nobody. Even when AD was talking about her dates with Matthew, he was like, I don't want it. I've been on the internet. They've been eating me up. I don't want nothing to do with it.
do you want to talk about the rumors with Kenneth?
Oh, about his sexuality?
Mm-hmm. That's what the streets are saying.
That is what the streets are saying, but I don't know. And apparently they did a TikTok, he and Brittany, where he
Mm-hmm.
was walking out of a closet and it was like, oh, I'll keep your secret. So I don't know if they're just trolling because they
Mm-hmm.
are that age of troll.
Mm-hmm.
The young 20s, they be trolling on the internet. That's what they do. So I
But
don't know.
yeah,
Consider
now, now they talk all the time. You didn't have much to say to her then, but now they talk all the time.
I don't know. Maybe he just needed her to be his friend. That's it. Maybe he talks to his friends, but not his significant other.
Hmm. There's so much more there.
Yeah. Was there any? I mean, AD talked about her dates with Matthew, which that was never going to work out, but she said he was cute.
Mhm.
I
It
guess.
fizzled out. Where's Amber, the other Amber? She said, "I
Oh, so
want
they
the
finally
part."
showed so they showed the clips of that, of the other Amber and Matthew saying the same things to her, so there's
And
that.
then just to wrap up, we find out that Izzy, Micah, and Jessica will be on the next season of The Perfect Match.
No surprise there. That show is an even bigger joke than Love is Blind.
I'm like, why
I
is Izzy here?
Oh, he said he fixed his credit. I
Good
believe
for
it when
you,
I see
boo.
it, which I never
Yeah.
will, so so I don't believe it, but okay, sure. Sure,
Mm,
Izzy.
mm-mm.
Uh-huh. Well, all right. I guess
Yeah.
that's it. It's a wrap on Love
Yeah.
is Blind season 6. We wish it were a wrap on Married at First season
I
17,
know.
but we're actually not going to do a review for that until next week because last night they just had us following behind divorced couples, which is not something we're interested in, and it's a very busy week for
Mhm.
us. So we'll be back with that next week. Yeah, and I think that's it, right?
Yep, that's it.
All right, bye y'all. Meet us in the comments.
Bye.